All right, I see a few people coming in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And for those of you listening on the podcast, I'm really glad that you're listening. You know what? I checked, for those of you who listen all the time, you already know this because I've been like raving about it for weeks upon weeks. But it happened. It literally happened yesterday. I went on the podcast platform and I was looking at the numbers, and yesterday it hit 200,000 streams. So the podcast just hit 200,000 streams, which I'm super excited about. I can't even begin to tell you how exciting it is that occurred. And you know what, Roland? I'm sorry. Miss Roland, I didn't hit record on one thing. For those of you live, just 1 second. I messed up royally. I've only done this 1,000 times. All right, here we go. All right, anyway. All right, so what I was saying was I went on the podcast and it hit 200,000 streams, you all. I cannot, it's mind-boggling to me. And I truly appreciate people from all over the globe who continue to listen to this podcast. This started out as just a little project when I was the principal at Fall Hamilton, mainly because I wanted to learn from people who were, one, smarter than me, and two, in this work deeply. And I had no idea that it would resonate with so many people around the globe. So I have to say, I'm freaking proud that it has hit 200,000 streams of a little podcast that started in my basement and made itself all the way upstairs to another room. I mean, just literally moving up. But love that it's hit the 200,000 mark. I also have some other really cool, awesome news that I'm excited to share. We just recently had the Trauma Informed Educators Network Conference, the 4th annual. It was virtual. Had 150 people gathered virtually, 25 remarkable sessions. We had 2 unbelievable keynotes, Dr. Lori Desautel, Dr. Ricky Gibbs. And then we did a live podcast with Robin Kogan and Carrie Sipp. And what an amazing couple days of learning. And a couple days of learning where now it's like, wait, that was awesome virtual, but it's time to get the crew back together. So disruptors are going to be uniting next year, 2024, in Lancaster, California, which is just outside of LA. We are bringing back the Trauma Informed Educators Network Conference in person, and we're actually partnering with Learn for Life and their Trauma Resilient Education Communities model, the TREC model. We're going to be there on their campus supporting. The TREC model is actually a 20-hour curriculum that supports educators in identifying trauma in students. It helps build resilience to life's ups and downs, develops healthy relationships and practices through restorative justice rather than punishing students who act out because of what's happened to them. So you guys save the date, and I'm gonna say it right now. Save the date. June 14th, 15th, and 16th. It's actually a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We wanted to do it on the weekend so people could come and not have to worry about if they're working summer school, taking off work. The 14th is going to be an academy day, which is going to be an extra day. The 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, are actually just going to be the conference days. And that is June 14th, 15th, and 16th. So save those dates. Well, this is episode 91, and I will tell you, I can't even express the gratitude and excitement I have for tonight. And the reason I do is because I know this guest, to be quite honest, probably better than any of the other 90 guests that I've had on here. For sure, honestly, known the longest and been through a lot of things together and individually. But Esohe Roland grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and received both her Bachelors and Masters in Middle Tennessee area. She has a heart and mind for educating. She got her start in education in the field in Metro Nashville Public Schools this is not on her bio, but I'm going to say it, Fall Hamilton Elementary, and was also a student in MNPS Metro Nashville Public Schools through middle and high school. Her passion for education has led her to write her first book, Dear First Year Teacher. She saw the decrease in teacher retention and wrote this book in hopes to assist in turning the teacher retention rates around. She aims to help all first-year teachers have a successful year, not only to have a successful year, but also an effective first year that will lead to many years in the education field. That is her formal bio. But her informal bio was, she mentioned at the beginning of this, and I'm going to say it, and I'm going to credit her. She said, you know what this is probably going to be like? This is probably going to be like us sitting out on the bench in the front of the school at the end of the day. And Roland, I can't call you by your first name. I've always called you by your last. Welcome to the Trauma Informed Educators Network podcast. That was a little bit about you, but tell us a little bit more about you.
So, like you said, I am from Middle Tennessee, and the district that I teach in is the district that I received my education in. So there's gotta be some greatness in saying that. I had a great experience with high school into college, and honestly, I never would have thought that I was going to be a teacher. I definitely thought other things. I was like, there's a million things to do, but teaching. I got to work with a small group in college. They had some program that they were offering. There was a stipend. So I said, hey, I'll do that. And then I walked out of that program with a change of a major. And that was into education. And I got to go to I interviewed at Fall Hamilton with you. And that was my first job. And I was nervous. I was nervous, but literally you called me and I was like, oh yeah, it's kindergarten. This is not what I expected. But I got a great foundation at Fall Hamilton. And through that, I got to start mentoring first year teachers or teachers entering into their first year. And I realized, oh, wow, there's a lot that's not being covered in college. Because even with my book, there are no superficial things in my book as far as like, I'm not telling you which posters to buy at a store or, just silly things that will come with time. This is mainly the heart of teaching. And I was like, I got to get this message out. And so I started the book a while back, but through experiences that I needed to have, I finished the book. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And Roland, and for those of you who hear us talking, I have always called just about every teacher by just their last name. I don't know why. I don't know if it was because I was raised playing sports and but I've always done it. So please don't think that by me calling Esohe Roland, that it is disrespectful. This is just the relationship that we've always had. And I will say, when you talk about that experience, it was a joy and a pleasure to go along with you on that journey, not knowing you were writing a book. I probably would have said some things a bit differently at times, but the journey that you were on is one that I enjoyed watching, and you were a leader from the beginning. And I know I've told you that. And I know I remember sitting in conversations with you saying, you have this potential. I see it. So why now? Why, of all the times you've been in, this will be your 9th year. Is that correct?
Going into my 9th year.
Going into your 9th year, right?
I believe so. You know what? You're telling my age.
7th, 8th. Yes, because I was at Fall Hamilton for 7. You spent 1 more year there, and this would be your 9th. So 9 years. And I can only imagine the stories and the insight you built over 9 years. But why now? Why, I'm going to get this thing done and get it out?
From what I hear there's a lot with teachers. There's a lot of talk. Right? Everybody's talking. Everybody wants to teach, but everybody doesn't quite know. But from the talk, it's like I'm hearing our newer teachers that are fresh into the game when you should be at your ultimate highlight. They're saying, I don't think this is for me. And I feel like no teacher comes to that decision easily. So there's something not being done, or there is some type of preparation or something not being told to a teacher for them to say that when it's only your 2nd year. I'm concerned. Like it literally came from concern. Because if we're losing teachers and it's only their second year, that's scary. And
And
I've heard it straight from their mouths. So
yeah. Do you feel like these conversations, and I have my own opinions, were happening pre-COVID? Do you think they've gotten worse post-COVID? Do you think that it is like when do you think these conversations have begin to ramp up?
you know what? Honestly, I haven't thought of it into that context, but yeah, that it has gotten worse. It has gotten a lot worse because I went through my own bout with like starting to feel like, oh my gosh, it's teaching for me.
Mm-hmm.
But post COVID, that's when it started. Honestly, because that wasn't the conversation when I was there. Like teachers wanted, like they enjoyed going to school. They enjoyed
Mm-hmm.
going to work, at least from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like that. But even transitioning back from virtual,
Mm-hmm.
that was a hard transition. And then learning ceased everywhere because I got to think about it college wise as well. I didn't think about that. That's a good point.
And I don't know if I've ever really said this on this podcast, but Sandy Hook was a massive change in the field of education. We went from being educators to being frontline workers, where that moment changed everything for educators. And then we compound with multiple events all over the country, even in our own city in the last 6 months. It puts this pressure, whether it's conscious or subconscious, on educators that these are real threats, right? These are real things that happen in teachers' minds. And then we change curriculums and we put laws into place like are in Tennessee, retention laws, and that puts as much more pressure on teachers and kids. And it just seems like there's more and more rolling out as teachers are trying to grapple with the thing we just trying to figure out. So is that what you're seeing too from an educator's perspective, especially one that mentors teachers?
There is definitely a lot of pressure, and it's like it's coming from every different viewpoint. I remember speaking with someone this year and they're like, I don't know how to do this. Nobody told me. I don't know this. I don't know that. Now I got to do this. Now they're saying I got to do this. Now I have to have this in by this time and this in by that. And it's just a lot of pressure. And if you don't know how to manage and organize that in your head, every time you're going to fall short, or at least feel as if you're falling short. So I think ultimately, yes, it's just a lot of pressure from teaching doesn't look appealing at this point. And I can tell I'm on TikTok and everything, and I'm like, oh wow, like this is not just Nashville, Tennessee. This is America wide. Let me say America. Like the education system is struggling.
Well, and I think it's safe to say it's not even just America.
Yeah.
We have people that listen to this podcast from all over the world, and we've heard the same things in Australia and New Zealand and the UK and around the globe of it's becoming too much, right? And I think there's a lot of reasons why, but I do believe there's hope if we're willing to change the system, right? If we want to continue to do what we've always done, we're going to continue to get same results, and those results are not going to be where teachers come into schools anymore, right? We know this, but we can't do more. So let's get into your book. And I did put a link in for those of you who are listening live, I did put a link that will be on social media. And this dear first year teacher, what was some of the messages that you shared? And talk about the structure. You not only wrote it from you, but you had expert educators come in and share their insights too. So tell us a little bit more about it.
A main message in there is to not do it alone. And we're having this conversation means that we're not doing it alone. And a lot of teachers are afraid, from what I've seen and what I pointed out in my book, like nobody wants to say, I don't know. So as I told you, there's little things that I can't teach, but I can teach you how to ask for help, where to go for that help. And because sometimes it's not just given to you. You have to be open to it. And that's a key message in the book. Like, you gotta be able to and willing to accept the help, but sometimes you have to find it, and you gotta find your place, and then be comfortable in learning. One of the chapters of just the power of being a lifelong learner, and I learned that from Fall Hamilton, is like, you can never stop. Don't ever stop. Like, it's a roller coaster. Only goes up.
Is it ever? Sometimes it goes down, and sometimes it feels like you're taking a really fast corner and there's sparks flying off, and you don't know if you're going to stay on, and then it levels off somewhat.
But yeah, that's a key message. Is like, just staying a learner, while also being a teacher. And that rubs off on the students more than anybody could ever know, because I hear especially with fifth grade, even my kindergartners, fifth grade, they will repeat me verbatim. They're like, Miss Roland does not like this, that, and the, because I talk to them just like I want them to talk to each other and to talk back to me. Like, I do not like the word shut up in my class.
Oh no, me neither.
And so I would say that to them all the time. And one day I was listening into their conversation. They were like, well, Miss Roland doesn't like when you use that. And it's like, but anyways, they learn from us and we can learn from them. But just that magnitude of remaining a learner, or, learning from the kids. And I've learned that time and time again at Fall Hamilton. I think some of the stuff you said stuck in there. It's stuck in there. It's there.
Well, and I'm not going to say his name, but one particular student who I know you remember, because he went from one of the hardest kids to one of your favorite kids that you went to his birthday parties and things, right? And sometimes that's the journey. And that's really what this podcast is about. You may not see the fruit of your labor in those moments, but man, when you see him later, it makes it worth it at that point. And I want to reinforce something else that you said, Roland. We'll get into that, not that student by name, but that experience. It's true. And as a school administrator, I also had to be in a learner's mindset all of the time. Because you heard me say this in faculty meetings, I don't have all the answers, right? I don't have all the answers. Let's try to figure it out together. And it's hard as a school administrator, right? It's hard to go, I have to have answers really quickly, but I have to have a team that I can be confident in, that can make decisions, provide support for each other. It's challenging, but when we get out of this mindset that we don't have any room for learner, we've got it figured out. And from a new teacher, Roland, I saw that shift. A lot of new teachers came in with an idea that I've got it. And then when they didn't have it, they didn't know what to do. And I think what your book is going to do is, one, know it's okay if you don't have it, but two, know what you need to get it. And that's action. Nobody expects anybody to have it theoretically, but practically teachers are really expected to have it. Yeah. And that's just the realistic point of view, right? Like, I don't have time to tell them how to do all that. Let their team lead do it, right? Those are the realistic conversations that occur within teams, within admin. It's challenging. So talk about the use of experts and the use of veteran educators in your book, and how did that come about, and who were some of them that you spoke to?
Yeah, I decided to pull that component into the book because I was like, it's not ever just enough to hear it from one person, because sometimes it'll be like somebody will say something to you, but when you're hearing something from repeated people, from people who have been there and experienced it, it adds a whole nother magnitude to the knowledge. And so some of these teachers I've worked with, like Miss Davis, that was my fifth grade teaching partner, and she is the ultimate because she opened my eyes even more. She's been teaching for about 4 or 5 years, I want to say. And she goes with her flow. She does what she wants within education. She's an advocate. She's in policy. She's at Vanderbilt. And just working with her was so amazing. I said, you gotta jump on board with this. And then also one of our experienced teachers, she was my mentee. I mentored her into her first year, and now she's on her fourth or fifth year, and I'm like, you got it, girl, you got it. I was like, so these are people I've had experience with, and I've saw that they know something about education. And so like with Miss Davis, she definitely mentions in her letter advocating for yourself, advocating for the students. She said, if I ever lose my job for advocating for a student, I'll be okay. Because so she's so many. Dr. Kiera Dotson, I went to school with her. Just a phenomenal person. Erica Calhoun. It just came about, and people were willing to work, and we worked together, and it came from conversations. Everything started with a conversation. Let's talk about it. What are your feelings on this? What do you think? Which I let them actually choose their chapter. First come, first serve. But
Hey, let's be honest, Roland. You'd had chapter 12.
So they were like, this chapter speaks the most to my heart. And so that's the chapter they got, as long as it was available. That was the chapter they got. And there's some deep, I believe deep information in there, as well as the final chapter of at-risk teachers and who our at-risk teachers are. And that's not a topic that's normally talked about, but it directly correlates with teacher retention. There are teachers that are in the cracks. And if you would have caught it quick enough, then we could have said, okay, let's look at teaching like this, or how can we help? So preventing being an at-risk teacher, and that's burnout, compassion fatigue. You know the lingo.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
You know what I hear most of all, Roland, is that you have a network of people, and that is so powerful. And for a first-year teacher, I was one. I walked into a school, and I don't think I've ever talked about this on this podcast, but I walked into a school, and a veteran teacher, a very veteran teacher, 40-plus year veteran teacher, said, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name is Matthew Portel." She said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No, ma'am, I don't." She said, "Well, you better learn it." And I thought, well, all right, here we are, right? And I learned who she was, and she was an icon in the school, right?
Mm-hmm.
But teaching in general can be isolating, but a new teacher can be so isolating when you're trying to navigate 550,000 things happening at once, while building relationships with your colleagues, while building relationships with your kids, while trying to figure out your admin. It is so much. And yet, if you can get one mentor, if you can get one colleague, if you can get one person that can be that one, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all it takes, is getting that one next to you. It's ironic, right? It's the same thing we said with kids. It just takes one caring, loving, consistent adult. It's the same with educators. This work that we talk about, trauma-informed ed, is the same work we need to be doing with teachers. And I didn't always do it right? I know that. And I look back, and I've told stories on here how I've messed up many, many times. But we all need to just continue to try, because you and I had hard conversations. You and I had arguments, right? I mean, it's true. And yet I never stopped, one, caring about you, two, seeing you as an excellent teacher, and three, appreciating when you did voice what it is you needed to voice. And we've had those conversations. Listen, maybe not in that context, but I appreciate what you're saying, and I respect for you for what you're saying. That's what it has to be about. It's not about compliance. It's not about do it because I told you to do it. It really is, what can we do to work together to create an environment where, one, adults feel safe, connected, and heard, and two, kids can feel safe and connected and heard. So what are you hoping for this book? What is your dream pie in the sky? What do you hope it will do for educators?
My hope is that it gives insight and it gives teachers a voice, something that we've talked about a lot, especially at Fall Hamilton, having a voice, but it gives them, that silver lining that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, but there are steps that you'll have to take. There will be hard times, definitely hard times. There will be hard conversations, but honestly, some of those hard conversations are what put me where I'm at right now, because I'm able to have another hard conversation with somebody else. And I think it did me justice. And when we are afraid and we tiptoe, and we lack transparency, we fall short. And that's when becoming an at-risk teacher, because you're scared. You can't be scared to have a conversation. That's the easiest thing you can do in life. And it's probably, like we say, it's the kindest thing that you can actually do for anyone. So my hope is that they just see that silver lining, and they get to experience, and they actually take those words and remember them in their head and say, I need help. I need a mentor. I see the value in a mentor. I can maintain this relationship with my mentor, because it can never be one-sided. But those are some of the little nuggets in the book of maintaining your relationship with your mentor. So
it's funny you say that, because this individual, Dr. David Moore. He worked in Metro for a really long time. He was at Fall Hamilton all the time with Vanderbilt as a teacher, student teacher, whatever they liaison. I don't know what they call him, but anyway, I took comp, which was classroom management, my very first year as a teacher, and he was the teacher, and we never stopped contact. We never stopped communicating. Even now, I still text him, right? And I think about Chad High, who was the principal at Cole Elementary. He was my principal for 2 years. I still call and text him. Mentors in any field, in any space, are key. Jim Sporleader, for those of you who know Jim, the pioneer of trauma-informed ed, reached out to him many years ago when we started our journey at Fall Hamilton. It was like, I need some guidance. I still talk to Jim. These mentors are key, right? And especially for a new teacher. So, Roland, this is for teachers, but if you were to write, Dear First Year Principal, right? What would you want principals to know? And I want you to think about that from a first year teacher's perspective and from your perspective. What would you want principals to know about a new teacher walking into the building? If you could speak to 10,000 principals in a room, what would you tell them?
Dear first year principal, that's a good question. I'm not going to be perfect. I just off rip, I'm a little bit stubborn. I like to push it, and I like to push buttons too. But know that I'm here because I care. Know that I'm here because there was some calling, and I'm answering the calling, and I'm here. So grace, and know that everyone's not able to operate at the same level that you're able to operate in. But I showed up. I'm putting my best foot forward. So the acknowledgement of that is big. So that's what I would tell, like, grace. Just have some grace, because we all know we all going through something one way or another. Somebody called me a phoenix the other day, and I said that has to be the biggest compliment in the world, but we're all going through something. So understanding and grace, and you can't go wrong.
So, I mean, that if you're an administrator, I want you to rewind this podcast. I want you to go back to what Roland just said, because there's so much power in it. And you're right, Roland, that unrelenting positive regard is so important when it comes to admin to educators, right? Like, people are doing the best they can. And I know we are pressured to pressure, right? I know that. And it's so hard not to. But I also want to say that, yes, in my short time at Fall Hamilton, there were some major tragedies that happened. there were major tragedies that happened to our school community, to our faculty and staff. And those times are where we came together the most, right? But individuals are battling those crises all the time. And it doesn't have to be anything out of insanely crazy. It can be a flat tire that morning.
Yeah.
Right. And those things happen. And I think we get caught up in expectations and forget about the human on the other end. And what I heard you say is, just let us be human. We're trying to figure it out. We're doing the best we can, and give us some grace on the end. Right. And one thing I will say about you is you would share your opinions and share your disdain and be like, this ain't working, right? And a lot of times you were right, and sometimes you weren't, and you were frustrated, right?
I mentioned that in the book when I was like, my admin came to me and they told me this, that, and the other, and I said, no.
Yeah.
That's not me. But when I took a step back and I reevaluated, I'm like, they're not here to destroy me, They're here for me to grow. So obviously they see something that I need to grow. It took me a couple months, I'm not gonna lie, but I revamped what I was doing, and then the proof was in the pudding.
But that's a lesson that all educators, admin, and teachers need to learn, right? Is sometimes those conversations, those changes don't happen immediately, and they shouldn't. It takes that self-reflection. It takes that, okay, let me give this one step a try. Or from an admin, how can I continue to support you in where you are? Mm-hmm. It's great theory. It's hard in practice because everything is moving at lightning speed. And getting that time to have those conversations and support is really challenging. But what I hear you saying and what is in your book is it has to happen. Those things have to happen to sustain a teaching staff that is connected, heard, seen, and valued, and ones that will stay. Mm-hmm. And I think admin, that has to be it's got to be a drawing priority of, we've got to push the pause button. And there were times I remember we would do something and the team would be like, it's too fast. Mm-hmm. And we'd be like, okay, we're going to pull the throttle back. And of course you all had the advocate of Dr. Schroeder, and everybody on this podcast has heard of her because I refer to her as Yoda, where she would be like, nope, not right now. And we would have to respect that. Right. Yeah. And so I think my experience as an admin, especially with you being a teacher, was one, we were all learners. Mm-hmm. And the more that we showed up as a learner, the faster we moved forward. And I think when because I was there too, that I didn't show up as a learner sometimes, and it stopped the synergy. It stopped the progress that we could do collectively as a staff and admin. Right. And so that is a key lesson. So let's talk about your experience, because you've got a lot, right?
Stop telling my age.
It's not age.
Stop telling my age out here.
It's wisdom, Roland. It's wisdom. This is wisdom, right?
I got a lot more gray hairs now, I'll tell you that.
You see this? Look at this. I got racing stripes. I got gray racing stripes now. And my beard look at this.
I know it's
wait, look.
The gray hair.
Hold on. That one right there says Esohe Roland. There it is. But let's talk about it.
Show the one that
I know there's definitely, matter of fact, one whole strand is probably just gray because of me. You know what, y'all? I'm a hot mess admin, and you've talked about this, like in a way that I wouldn't want to work with me necessarily. This is why I always hired people that leveled me off, because I'm a big picture thinker. I want to see, I want to do it differently, and yet it worked as synergy. And not every principal will have a tracksuit Tuesday. I'm just going to say it. No, although
dress up as the only picture I have of him and he was dressed as Santa Claus. So.
I mean, why not? Right. And fun is important. Fun is really important in schools. We have to have fun. We have to have fun with each other. We have to have fun with our kids. Sometimes I might have taken it a little too far because I like to have a lot of fun, but it is key. But back to your experience, you've taught everything from kindergarten. You've taught kindergarten and fifth grade. So talk about those transitions. One of first starting out in kindergarten and be like, what am I doing? When you interviewed and you were like, kindergarten, no, yeah, sounds great. And then being like, I don't know, right? And then going, wait, I'm going to fifth grade. Talk about those transitions of when you first started and then as you progressed through your career. What was that like?
I'm going to answer that question, but I want to stop you because you were a great administrator.
I appreciate that.
And there were times that I didn't extend you enough grace in it.
I appreciate that.
You were starting off, and I was in the mindset of me, but looking back, and now that I have my graduate degree in administration, I've got a whole nother viewpoint on what it is to be an administrator. So I don't ever want to hear you refer to yourself as that, because hey, I'm a walking product. Like I
appreciate that.
I learned a lot from you. But my experience, kindergarten was great until it wasn't. And then it was great again until it wasn't. And honestly, the fifth graders I had, they were in my kindergarten class, which, man, bang for your buck. They were relentless. I'm like, I'm the person who picked you up when your knee was straight. One of them, I'm like, didn't I save your life when you were choking on a Skittle? And this is how you talk to me?
I couldn't do anymore. What else can I do?
But I'm like, God, I've been here for the long haul, but it was such a transition. I really, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the conversations that I'm able to have with students, and there being that higher comprehension behind it. I enjoy the jokes and how they think I'm old, and I refuse to take that. How they're like, Miss Roland, do you have this? I'm like, yeah. What do you think? I have TikTok, but I won't lie. This summer, I got to go back into the kindergarten classroom for a little bit and help out. And I was like, man, the potential, I was like, God, these kids, like, if they can grasp this, they're definitely going to be able to grasp it. And it felt good. And I missed it. I'm not going back, but I did miss it. And it's hard because I like to be everywhere. I want to teach this, but I want to teach this. But right now, I think I'm stepping into a role where it's time for me to give some of that knowledge away, because it's been working for me, because a lot of teachers have left. Some of the teachers that I was in undergrad with, I had a conversation with one person, and they were like, I gotta leave. And we're at the exact same point in our career. So it's time for me to start giving back. And
it's appreciated. It is so appreciated. And Roland, what I will say is you've always given back. You just never gave yourself credit to give back. I saw you in action many, many times with your colleagues, with kids, with being the advocate for people and kids. I saw that from the moment you walked into the building, and you did it as a learner. You expanded my ability to be a better admin, right? You put me into thinking of like, okay, we've got to think about this. And your advocacy was always from the heart. It was never anywhere but from your heart. And now you're stepping into a space where it's like, I'm producing something because I want to help others in this profession. And thank you, because if we don't do something, again, different, we will not have a lasting profession. Something has to give. And I think that what you said is so key, is it's happening all around us. The whole idea of a teacher crisis isn't a teacher crisis. This is a appreciation of teachers and a validation of teacher crisis. It's that teachers don't want to teach. It's that they want to teach. That's just what we want to do, right? And it's going to take people like you and every educator in this country to look at another educator and say, I've got your back. Mm-hmm. I've got your back. And no, it's okay to advocate, you all. Mm-hmm. I unapologetically and continue, and you know it because I used to do it at school. I unapologetically would speak my mind a lot of times, and it didn't necessarily work for everyone, but I could not say what was best interest for my staff and the school. There's no way I couldn't advocate. And I did get in a little bit of trouble here and there, and I did make some people angry. But at the end of the day, I was trying to do what was best for the staff that I worked next to and the kids we supported. And it's okay to get in that good trouble sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. That teachers a lot of times feel that we can't advocate. And I want to tell you, if you're listening to this, you need to know about CTIP, the Campaign for Trauma-Informed Policy and Practice. They are a national advocacy group that is starting local and state coalitions of educators and people who are wanting to see things done differently. They're coming up with strategy of political moves. There's all kinds that's happening. I don't want the educators to think they can't talk to their congressmen. They can't talk to their senators. They can't talk to their school board members. Talk to everyone. I still do. I met with my school board member that my child that represents us in my child's district, and I handed him a copy of this, and I said, hey, I'm going to give this. Can we follow up and have a conversation? This is how change has to happen. And as educators, don't be afraid to be part of that change. It's okay. They scare us saying that we can't do all kinds of things, and that's a tactic, right? Yeah. It's a tactic to try to keep us very quiet and complacent. And that I would rather we charge the capital than seeing more educators leave the profession. Right. Because that's just my personality.
Acknowledgement. That's what acknowledgement, and then steps. And that's what the book does push. Like, acknowledge, and we got to acknowledge what's happening, or else we end up in the same place or worse. So
I agree. And when we're in states, Roland and I are both in Tennessee. And for those of you who watch the political climate, we're in a toxic political climate here in Tennessee. Just last week or the week before, I had Zeta Elliott, who wrote a book that was trying to be banned in the county I live in. And so we were talking about that. That plays a role. In the state of Tennessee, you have to log every book in your classroom, and then it has to be approved through the librarian, and then it has to be approved for an admin. There's things that are happening that, to me, to be quite honest, are by design trying to break public ed. And I would say—
I heard that. I immediately said, the books that I purchased for my classroom, I have to log. Okay. We'll see how far that goes.
Yeah. And these are things that educators are dealing with that just devalidate and dehumanize and make educators feel like they don't have any. They're just robotic and doing this curriculum this way, this time, this space. And that's what we're dealing with. So, Roland, I want to thank you personally for putting this out. And I told you I did not buy it because I didn't want to buy it before we talked. But I am, and I can't wait to read it. And I will read the undertones when you're talking about me, because I know.
You see in the book The Help, right?
I say that jokingly.
No, you're on it.
Well, I mean,
but
if we're not learning,
you are in my acknowledgments as well, because you.
I appreciate it.
Because I'm like, Paul Hamilton gave me my foundation. It's a great school. I love it. So
if people if they want to follow you, follow your work, find more about the book, where can they locate you on social media? And I already put the link, but go ahead and tell them where they can find your book.
So on Facebook, our website is being worked on right now, but find me on Facebook at Dear First Year Teacher, which is a page. So it should pop right up. And then the book is on Amazon. I'm also on Instagram. Same thing, Dear First Year Teacher. And those are the main ways to get in contact with me right now.
Awesome. And the last thing I want to ask you is, what do you want educators to know from the author of Dear First Year Teacher, Esohe Roland? What do you want them to know?
We can be of assistance to these teacher retention rates. We can help. But it's going to take having those hard conversations. It's going to take stepping out of our comfort zones, and we can do it. But, it takes one step at a time.
Be brave. That's it. Be brave.
Be brave. Look at you.
Brave.
Sum it up. Be brave.
And have the conversations, y'all. Admin, have the conversations. I didn't always do it as much as I needed to. And as I reflected, as I left my principalship, that was one thing that I reflected. I needed to have more conversations, not conversations like I gotcha, not conversations like you need to do it, but authentic conversations of, one, being concerned, two, also pushing people to be better. I did have some of those, but I didn't have enough, because I'll say it, and I've said it on this podcast, I could not imagine working with more of an incredible staff. Every year I was there, we didn't all get along all the time. We were a dysfunctional, functional family. We got on each other's nerves sometimes, and sometimes we celebrated together. That's what it's supposed to be like. It's not unicorns and rainbows every day, everywhere. When you're working that closely in those trusting relationships, it's just like a family. It gets messy sometimes. And in the words of Alex Chevron, who has been on here, embrace the mess, because the mess is where learning occurs. Book. Don't forget to go on and get that book, Dear First Year Teacher. You can get on Amazon. And as always, please go out into the world and do something awesome. All right. Thank you all who came tonight and was on here live. Much appreciated. For those of you who don't give StreamYard your name, I can't see your name, but get comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah, I say that all the time. I don't think I was ever super comfortable as a principal. But anyway, Amanda, I think that one of them might be you. Dr. Bassi, good to see you on here. I figured you'd be on here creeping on us to see if we were going to talk about you. And for the record, we did not talk about you. But we appreciate your leadership as my AP, as well as Roland's previous principal. But anyway, thank you all so very much for being here. I will be here next week, and I don't remember who it is. But see you next Thursday, same time, same channel. And as always, thank you all for listening. Can't wait to hit that 1 million stream mark here in the next couple years. So thank you. See you later, and I'll see you next week.